Right. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to thank you all for joining us on this episode of Chill with Jim, where it is always business up top and pajamas on the bottom. I am your host and client advocate for Strix, Louisiana, Jim McCarthy, and my job is to make sure that people laugh and smile. That's my job over here, and it's actually my job as a client advocate as well. So, while I do enjoy making people laugh and smile, I also enjoy making sure that our clients are set up with the best equipment, the best software, and the best IT solutions to help make sure that their businesses run at optimal efficiency. We also have David Diarman, the owner and founder of Strix, Louisiana, with us.
Hey, everybody. David Diorman, owner of Strix LA. Thank you for being here today. Looking forward to this episode. It's going to be a really good episode. Got a couple of guests.
Giving away the secrets. So, no, it's
follow the script.
Follow the script. So, a little bit about Strix. We believe there's always a better, simpler, and more secure way to do just about everything in this world. So, what that means to our staff of superhero technicians is that we are constantly searching for the best solution to make sure that everything we have in place is running at optimal efficiency like we talked about. So we want to bring some awareness to current security risks. We want to talk about maybe some of the things going on in the IT world today. And then we also bring in very special guests. And that's what we're going to do today. And so as you can see here, before we get our pens out, we can start taking notes about pen testing. Here's a quick reminder that you can go ahead and find us on YouTube, subscribe, ring the bell, and every time we go live, you will be able to see that we're going live as a reminder so you don't miss out. And so that's our little promo there. Like us, follow us, all of that. But now let's just go ahead and jump right into it. Today, we are going to be talking about pen testing SaaS apps or SaaS apps. So we have Harley Quinn, a pen tester, also known as Harley Kimball. Sorry, that one I had to throw out there. I'm sure you've never gotten it before.
Never.
And then we have Courtney Sparks, who's going to be talking about Sparkman, who's going to be talking about pen testing from the other side of it. So,
from the top.
What'd you say?
Say, cut, take it from the top.
Yeah, no kidding. So before we get started, we talked about Show Jim a little bit. Let's go ahead and let everyone kind of introduce themselves. So, Harley Kimball, if you don't mind, go ahead and give us a little bit of background about you. That would be awesome.
Sure. Yeah. No, thanks for having me on the show, guys. I'm really excited to talk with Courtney, and kind of hear, the customer side of the house, because it's always good to hear the other side. So my name's Harley. I've been doing pen testing professionally, full-time for a little bit over a year now. But then before that, I was working as a IT manager for a service provider based out of Portland, Oregon. So yeah, currently I'm working full-time as a cybersecurity analyst, where I'm pen testing SaaS applications, a lot of web applications in-house for a company. But then I also have my own business where I help do consulting for pen testing, either networks or web applications or social engineering, whatever it is the need is, I can typically help out there. So yeah, that's a quick high-level 30-second overview.
All right. And Courtney Sparkman, how about you, good sir?
All right, so Courtney Sparkman, CEO and founder of OfficerReports.com. I am a non-technical CEO, so I probably won't be able to get down to the weeds with you about all the stuff that I've learned during the pen testing process, but I can definitely give you some customer perspective on it. We are a SaaS company that's been in business going on 9 years now. So
Wow.
it's been a little while, and like I said, non-technical. So I've learned quite a few things on the road, and we'll share a little bit of that today.
Awesome.
All right. Wow. They've been on Chill with Jim before as special guests, so it's really an honor to have them back to see both sides of the road here, what it looks like from both angles. And so, at any point throughout, if you out there, our millions of Facebook watchers, have any questions or want to pick their brain about something, go ahead and just write in live. It'll come to us and we can go ahead, ask them and get them involved, get your thoughts involved as well. So yeah, today we'll talk about the kind of pen testing in general, maybe a little bit about Harley's why, and then go over some of the applications it can go into for SaaS apps. And then we're going to bring in Courtney to see what it looks like from the other side where you're the one getting pen tested and it's for your product. So going to be very interesting and good today. So Harley, let's go ahead and start out with you. We just have a few things we wanted to ask. We like to start with the why something is or why someone's purpose is. Now, can you just tell us a little bit about your why when it comes to pen testing?
Sure. Yeah, of course. For anyone who may not know, the primary purpose of pen testing is to look at infrastructure or applications from like the attacker point of view, from looking at it like that hacker mindset. And that was really important to understanding my why, because I was a kid when I first found out that that was a career path. I was playing a game online, and some dude, I was probably 14, and some dude hit me up, and long story short, he ended up sending me a phishing link. And this was like 10 years ago. Phishing wasn't as prevalent as it is today.
Mm-hmm.
And, I didn't know any better, but I noticed a few things were wrong. Like the copyright year in the footer was outdated. There was like a broken image. The URL, said .tk instead of .com. So like a few things that I knew wasn't right. But I was immediately hooked. Like I was so intrigued. Like, you can't just clone a website. So I had to understand how that worked. So I just, I spent months just going after school. I'd go home and I'd learn like how to make phishing websites, how to play with remote administration tools, what the reverse shell, like just trying to learn as much as I could. And it wasn't until I got older, like at first it started as like, this is cool, I can prank my friends, but it wasn't until I got older where I realized like, this is scary. Like some of the stuff I was able to do is scary. And there's real like business impact to this, or just people's personal lives. Like I've got younger siblings, I've got a little sister, like, if she was compromised and someone's looking through her webcam, like it's just crazy, right? So when I found that there was a real career path where I could feed that creativity and the like, breaking into stuff, and I could do it legally while helping people and getting paid, like it was the right fit for me. So that's how I found it, and that's why it's always been like, okay, how do I become that? How do I get there? So
wow, that's quite. So how old were you when this happened then? How
I was like 14. Yeah, I was like 14 when I first came across a phishing site, and ever since then I spent a lot of time trying to learn how it works.
So
wow.
did you end up following that site and go into what he created, or?
So I didn't fall for it. I did test it though. Like I typed in like fake stuff in the username and password, and it signed me in, right? So that's when I knew. And what ended up happening is like I started annoying that because he added me in Skype. So I started annoying him in Skype, and I was like, please teach me. And he blocked me, and I never heard from him again. And so I had to figure it out on my own. But yeah.
That is great. You were asking him to teach you the ways.
Yeah.
Oh,
Young Jedi.
Yes, or young Sith.
Right.
But becomes a Jedi. Yeah. I like it.
Anti-Anakin or something. Storyteller, that guy.
Well, that is awesome. I didn't expect that to go like that. That's a great Why? And you've had it like for a lot of young people out there to just have a clear idea of, oh, I'm 14 and this is what I want to be. Like, that's a huge step in itself. So that's great, man. It's cool to see you doing your dream as well.
I'm very grateful. I'm very, because like I have a lot of friends, right, who still today they don't know what they want to do, and I was grateful to find that so young and live in a time where I can do that. 20 years ago, it doesn't really exist. Like, ethical hacking and pen testing wasn't really a thing. So the stars align to make this happen for me.
Awesome. Well, would you talked about pen testing a little bit with your intro. And so some of the things you do, can you look at the SaaS side? Tell us exactly what SaaS stands for, and then some of the reasons that pen testing is important from that angle.
Sure. Yeah. So pen testing, I mean, the thing, cybersecurity in general has so many niches. But pen testing, I mean, you can go even deeper into additional niches. And so SaaS is software as a service. And so it's typically talking about web applications for the most part. But I'm sure Courtney could talk more about the SaaS side and the various components of that. But when it comes to the pen testing side of it, you may hire a pen tester to come and look at your infrastructure, like the actual box that's hosting all of that application. And you may not want them to actually test the application itself. Like, don't touch my code, just look at the infrastructure. So, there's very different types of pen test assessments that you can do based on what your needs are. And so there's like network and infrastructure, like I mentioned, and you can look at that from the outside on the internet. You could look at it on the internal LAN, where maybe you got Active Directory, and I can get super technical, but basically like inside the network, and seeing how an attacker might be able to go from one compromised computer in your network to all over the environment. Like, how could they do that, right? So that's a whole nother thing. But when we're talking about SaaS applications, they're different vulnerabilities. Like, you're not going to find cross-site scripting or SQL injection in a network, because it doesn't make sense. Those type of vulnerabilities are going to be what you're looking for in like a web application. So the difference there is, if you're testing a web application, you're trying to make sure that the data that lives in that web application and that what users come across, that their information is going to be secure through that pane, basically through that application. And you want to make sure that an attacker can't make that user do something they don't want to do, or can't view information that they shouldn't have access to. You're not necessarily seeing, can I go from this computer to a different computer? That's something different. So I hope that makes sense. But obviously there's other type of assessments as well. But I could talk on that for hours.
Yeah. So Courtney, when you're hearing that, like, what are some of the things that come into your head about your application, your software as a service application, and some of the ways that just kind of stick out where you're like, oh, that's perfect for what I need?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Again, I'm a non-technical guy, but as I hear Harley talking about some of this stuff, it's like, okay, I've heard that before. We tested for that. And I think, again, as a non-technical CEO, I did not get it. Right.
Right.
To me, I'm like, all right, we got a solid password and a username. I mean, what else do we need? Right. Right. And that's what you think. So the first time we went through a pen test, I'm like, why are they loading all this stuff on our servers? What is this? Mm-hmm. And I still didn't get it until I got the report back. Right. So they send you back this report with, various tiers of criticality. You have to address these things. You have to address those things. And I'm looking at this report and I'm like, this can't be our software. This has to be somebody else's, right? There's just too much here. We don't. And then it dawned on me, right? We have an actual application that connects out across the internet, right? People pinging it and trying to get in. And it was just the realization, like, oh my God, this is serious, right? So I think after our first pen test, I started to get it. Right, that this is something that no matter how simple your application is, right, it's probably something that needs to be tested, because again, there are people out there constantly trying to get into your server. They're trying to figure out the shortcuts, the ways to get in, And unless you have someone who's, kind of an expert pen testing and security in general, you're probably going to be hit with something.
Yeah, it sounds like you don't really know what they're going after necessarily. There's different types of attacks going on. So you may have somebody trying to hit your website to get into your network and then spread laterally throughout the network, or you may have someone that's trying to get into your database and steal records or hijack your website or whatever.
And that was one of the shocking things to me, right? So I'm like, you mean they don't need a username and password to get into the database? What is that?
Right.
So again, for people out there who might be listening, it behooves you to start pen testing and getting a security expert in to help out, because there are just so many things that you don't know.
Yeah, the real benefit, in my opinion, of doing a pen test is to demonstrate that impact, right? Because hacking in nature is super technical, and most people that aren't super technical people, they're not going to get it. When I'm talking about it and I'm like, oh, I did this awesome payload that did this reverse shell TCP connection, they're like, what? So it's like
that can't happen. We don't even have all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But if I instead I say, well, hey, because you guys gave me authorization, I was able to press this button, and now I have all of your customer social security numbers. You get that, you know what I mean? Like, that makes sense to you. That's tangible. And so it's the cool thing about a pen test is you're able to identify what those issues are without actually having to go through a breach and actually getting hacked. Because it's up to you. You can find out about it during the breach, or you can find out about it ahead of time so you don't have the breach. There's really no other option. It's a matter of time before it occurs. So that's why I like the pen testing.
Yeah. Whew. Just thinking of all the different angles of that, all the different intrusion points, and that's pretty intense. So when it comes to your job, Harley, is it similar to what Courtney's talking about? A lot of times people just don't quite get it until you pull out this list of...
That's 100% it. And I'm going to admit, like, when I write the report, I write that knowing I'm talking to many different audiences. Like, I've got a Courtney who's going to read the report. So I put an executive summary and I say, here's no technical jargon. Like, there's nothing in here that's technical. This is what happens. Here's the impact and why this is important, right? So that way you get the gist of it in the first couple pages. You understand what was found. You understand, okay, there's work to do and areas to improve. But you also understand what we're doing right, because I always like to mention where people are doing things right. Because honestly, pen testing, depending on who you go through, it can be one of those experiences where it's like, you built this baby, right? Like, you made this baby, you put all your heart and soul into it, and then someone just comes and knocks it all down and tells you how terrible of a job you're doing.
You have such an ugly baby.
Yeah, like, that doesn't feel good. It doesn't make you want to do pen testing again. Like, it's important, but you'd rather just put your head in the sand so you don't deal with that shame. And I think that that's obviously the wrong approach to take. And so I think us as pen testers can improve there by giving kudos where kudos are due. Like, if you're doing things right, we should put that in the report just as well as we should put the things you're doing wrong. So, we'll have all that in the executive summary, but then the rest, 60 plus pages are going to be the technical, like, here's the nitty gritty. This is how we did it. This is what the impact is because of that. And these are steps you can take to fix it and remediate those things. And all of that's a whole different target audience. That's the IT people. We're delivering that to the IT folks who can read it and understand what that means. So that way they can go out and actually fix issues or implement policy change or whatever the issue is.
So did you feel like that towards the beginning, Courtney, like, oh, how are they saying that about my product? It can't be true.
No. So short answer, no. And the reason is I'm not a developer, right? So the actual code that was written didn't reflect on me, right?
So you looked at the developers like, y'all's baby is ugly.
Why did you guys let me adopt an ugly baby? Yeah, so I wasn't affected in that sense. So I think if I would have been the actual person actually developing the software, I could absolutely see that, right? So For officer reports, if someone came in and said this marketing program sucks, yeah, I probably would have felt real bad about that because that's kind of my thing.
Right.
But on the product side, on the technology side, not as didn't feel that way. So what I was interested in saying is, how ugly was the baby, right? Because I was kind of interested after a while. When it comes down to it, if there's something wrong with the software that affects our customers and we lose customers, we don't want to be there. So I was a lot more interested in seeing that. And I was looking forward to it, actually.
That's awesome.
So on that note, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but just thinking about, Strix is one of our specialties is cybersecurity, but we don't do pen testing, but it's part of cybersecurity. And
Yep.
so now Courtney, he helps security guards and security companies do their jobs better to be more specified in that field. So like a lot of this we're talking about is going and getting some help from the people who are the specialists. So, if Courtney uses us for their normal IT, we're still going to want to bring in someone who's an actual pen test specialist to do this, because our tools are not going to be the same, or our knowledge is not going to be the same as what they have to bring to the table.
Yeah, that's your blue team and red team, right, Harley? Your
Exactly.
the defensive side and the offensive side, and really they need to test each other.
100%. Yeah, I think they only make each other better, right? Because the red team can go in, they can say the red team's like the bad guys, the attackers, who I am. They go in and they say like, these are all the holes, or hey, I ran this attack. Did you guys see it? Like, did you detect that? And if the answer from the blue team, the defensive guys, if the answer is, oh no, we didn't see that, by doing the red team assessment, you kind of have an opportunity there to say, oh, well, you didn't see that. Let's go look at your tools. Let's try to tune it. Like, you should be able to see these indicators of compromise. So let's set an alert when that happens in your environment. And then that's when you start talking about purple teaming, right? Like mixing the two colors together. And then you can get, that's where the real beauty is. I feel like once an organization goes through pen testing, eventually it should get to the point where they're doing it often enough, they're improving their software development lifecycle enough to where pen testing is not as fruitful anymore because they're not finding anything. So at that point, you don't stop, you got to stay ahead of it. But then that's when you can implement more of that purple team exercises where it's like, okay, cool. So now we've got all the issues identified. We fixed all those problems. Now let's see how we can detect and make sure that your operations are going to continue when the attack occurs, or when something, a new vulnerability comes out. And because there's always going to be, no matter how good you write your code, you have dependencies, right? Like the server that you're hosting your code on, that server is going to become vulnerable at some point. And, so there's layers to this. The pen testing's not enough. The cybersecurity you guys do, it's not enough. So we all have to work together to make that happen.
Almost
enough. So Courtney, I'm curious with with the pen testers that you've had come in and they give you this report, there's obviously the chance for there to be some rivalry between the developers and the pen testers. What have you seen from the developers, and how have you maybe managed that if you had to manage it? Are the developers usually, oh, okay, yeah, I see that, or are they more, maybe defensive?
No, and the thing is, not that I've seen outwardly, right? So I think, again, because of the way that we've inherited the kind of the software over time, no one feels like, oh, this is my baby, right? So everyone's kind of contributed for the most part to build what we have. And again, what we're more focused on, hopefully the developers would feel this way as well, is that we want to make sure that we are standing, right? So our customers are security guard companies. They operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365. So we can't afford to be down, right, because someone came in and SQL injection or cross-service scripting or whatever that is and took us down, right? So we don't want that. Now, I think everyone on the team understands that. So as we find these things, we try to fix them, right? So we don't have a team of 200 software developers. It's a small team, and we realize, hey, this is something that we have to try and get out ahead of. So no, I think we kind of appreciate having pen testers come in and be able to assist.
And I think that's an indicator that what you have built, the team that you've built, is you guys have a strong security-minded culture, and that's what this is all about. Is you got to get to that point to where you can take the emotion out of it, and you can look at we've got an issue, and we've got to fix the issue, right? And there are, from my experience with consulting and seeing many different companies, sometimes you get the security-minded folks that are gonna do well and they're gonna survive, and then other times you come across those that, it's usually dependent on the leadership teams. And if the leadership teams are the type where they don't want to know and they want to put their head in the sand, that type, then usually the developers are going to be that way too, and then they're going to say, well, can you change the criticality of this so it looks better on our insurance policy? I've gotten those questions before. Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah.
It's ethical hacking, guys. Ethical. It says it in the title.
Let's not turn this into unethical reporting. Okay.
Right. Exactly.
Hey, so Harley, so for the most part, the clients that you deal with, are most of them very receptive to the report and what's with the follow-up, or a lot of, is it kind of split half and half, or most people just don't want to see it?
In general, it's people accept it. They want to see it. They hire me for a reason. They want to know where their issues are. Occasionally, you've got the client that is just looking to check a box so they can get that compliance. That happens, and when that occurs, those are the trickier ones. But I think that's where my job as a pen tester is to help them see the value. That's where it's, hey, look, I'm not here to trash your stuff. I'm here to help you understand we're looking to help, but then also to give you kudos where kudos is due. And I think that's something that we could do more of, so it doesn't feel like we're really the bad guy that, for the most part, people are awesome, and it's a benefit. Everyone's happy all around.
Yeah, I imagine that's a huge distinction, whether you volunteered for this. So, I as the business owner am hiring a pen tester to come in and see what we've got. And I would kind of look at that as really, it's kind of like QA. When you do development, you have QA. You have someone testing the code to see if it works like it's supposed to. Really, you're just testing the code to see if it doesn't let hackers in. But I can see where if you're being forced to do this pen test for some sort of compliance reason, or because your clients are making you do it or something like that, and so there's already this negative feeling about it, I can see where that would get ugly pretty quick.
Exactly. Yeah, and there's a lot of people that do come at it for the let's check the box, for the compliance thing. And obviously the clients that want to do it because they want to do things right, they're the best clients to have.
Courtney, are you able to take the results of that pen test and help your clients feel better?
Our clients don't care.
Okay. Fair enough.
Right. So most of our clients are non-technical, and what they want, what we want to provide to them is uptime. Right. So I think, and this is probably relevant for most SaaS companies nowadays. The people using the product aren't technical people. They're purchasing the product so they can use it for operations or HR or sales, whatever it is. And they just want it to be up and be secure, right? So you have to, give this trust to the vendor or the person that you're purchasing from to make sure, hoping that they're doing the right thing, right? And I think that's where we kind of approach it from.
I think that they don't care because you haven't been breached. I think that's because as soon as you're breached, oh, they care. They care a lot.
Yeah.
Think about
SolarWinds
and the brand reputation hit. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of companies now that won't even talk to them just because of that one incident. And they didn't care before the breach, but after the breach, they do. And so I think that's the key distinction there, is making sure that we understand that, well, they only don't care because they think they're fine. So.
Yeah, and I would think it could be going into the sales world, it could be a wedge, especially maybe your competitor doesn't do pen testing. Hey, we do pen testing to make sure our stuff is secure. Maybe you should ask the other guys if they do too. Just something that you
Yeah.
might need to know.
Yeah.
If we were dealing with DoD type contracts, we would probably pursue that. But again, it's our clients want uptime, they want secure, they want it just like everybody else. Everybody on the line right now wants the software that they're using to be secure.
Right.
What that requires, what that takes. We're hoping that the people that we're purchasing it from are doing that.
Yeah.
But to Harley's point, once it goes down, then it's holy cow, what is going on? Now it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just quick question. I'm starting to step on toes here, but best practices. All right. So as a software company, what are the best practices around pen testing? How often should you be doing it? Are there specific things that you should be requiring from your pen tester, or should you just trust them to go in and do their thing? What are kind of best practices around that? I might be firing my company. Go ahead.
So here's my
I know
opinion.
what you are doing. You are taking the questions I have, so that's great. I don't have to ask them then, so go ahead.
Here's my opinion on that. I think when you get to a certain size and it's cost effective, I think you should have a pen tester in-house, because you need to have someone constantly looking at your stuff. In all honesty, a pen test assessment once a year, they get pricey, and it's not enough, because it's a snapshot in time. You took a pen test today, tomorrow there's a new update, tomorrow there's a code release.
Yeah.
Did things change? Is there a new vulnerability? I don't know. Let's find out next year. That
And you
doesn't sound good, right?
You look at the number of exploits that come out every single day.
Yeah.
That could affect the application.
Right.
Or,
So
updates come out every single day.
So best practices is a tough one to answer around that, because it also just depends on what your risk tolerance is. Like, what does your application do? What does it host? Who does it affect? Like, do you have PII? Do you have PHI? What type of PII? Like, are you going to have to do a crazy breach disclosure if you get hit or not? Like, those are all factors that you have to, do a cost analysis, benefit versus reward type thing, or risk versus reward. So for those reasons, it's tough to give you a blanket answer, which is why I think if you have a pen tester in-house, it makes it easier, because the ideal scenario would be you get your all of your applications, all of your infrastructure, all of your domains that you have, all of the internal environments as well as the external environments, the networks and everything. All of that would be tested, and then they get tested again every time a change is made, which is that's difficult and extremely expensive if you're hiring someone outside to do that. If you don't have the need or the cost for an in-house full-time person, at minimum, I would say once a year on each application you own, as well as all the infrastructure you own, and then take a look at maybe some of your more critical apps, some of the more, if they host more of that type of sensitive data, talking to someone and working out a deal, or maybe you can do it on a quarterly basis and have that work out. There are companies, myself included, that are trying to do more of like a subscription model, at least for some of the external, like least intrusive type assessments. So that way, we'll catch something within 30 days instead of within a quarter or whatever. So there's options for that, but for the most part, it's finding the vendor you trust and identifying what your needs are.
Yeah, I know that there are automated tests out there that are available that will do the basics, the basic pen test, and a lot of people are selling those these days. I would think, Harley, just spitballing here, and Courtney, I don't even know if it would be something that a company like yours would like, but if you could develop some automated testing, kind of like QA testing, where you have automated tests, and you could do a pen test automatically, maybe not quite as expensive as a full-time in-house person, but something that could be run more often, very easily. I don't know.
Here's my 2 cents on the automated stuff. In my opinion, it's not the same thing as pen testing. Those automated tools, they're vulnerability assessments, which is very different than a penetration test. And I always look at those tools as almost like a power tool, right? Like, a power tool is something that if a skilled person who knows how to use it, it's going to help them be more efficient at their job. But if you don't know how to use that power tool right, then you're not going to build anything with it. So that's really the main factor there. If you have someone who knows how to analyze that data and be able to weigh things, like for example, if you've ever ran like a Nessus or a Tenable scan, those vulnerability tools, you'll get this giant report. It'll be listed with the criticalities like a pen test report would be, but it doesn't know you and it doesn't know your environment. So it's going to find this box with this CVE and it's going to say, hey, this is a critical issue, and if you don't fix it right now, everything's going to burn down. But what it doesn't know is that box is isolated to its own network and nobody uses it. And like there's no data on it. And even if it was fully compromised, you can't get anywhere with that. So that's where the professional analyst comes in and says, oh no, you don't need to spend your time and effort fixing that issue. You really need to look at this medium level issue because it's more important than the report makes it seem. And this is why, right? And so that's my 2 cents on the automated scanners for the most part.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, so I guess that was gonna. So if you're a CEO going into, or you have this product and you're going in, what are some good questions to start out with of just to like, hey, can you check this for me and can I look at this for pen testing? As a business owner, what am I looking to ask to make sure that this
like what do you do? Yeah,
pen tester is qualified?
Yes, if you're wanting to get a pen test, you feel like you should, or you want to at least talk to somebody. The hardest part is figuring out, well, who do I even talk to, right? And something like this, there's a lot of trust that goes into it. You're giving someone authorization to hack you. Like you have to trust them for that. So word of mouth and referrals go a long way in this business. Talk to your friends, talk to people you know, figure out who they would use, right? That's going to be, if you trust someone and they trust this guy, then you can at least have a conversation with them. And the biggest thing is just hopping on a scoping call. We don't have to go super in depth, but just have a conversation with the professional and say, like, this is what I have, this is what I want to know, and then that's it. And then that person, at that point, if someone called me and I'm doing a scoping call, I would just identify like, okay, what's the application? How large is it? Is there a bunch of different features in the application, or is it a pretty, lightweight thing? Are there admin users? Are there, just standard user? How many roles are there in the application? And once you...
Sorry, Harley. Are there red flags as you're having this conversation and someone's asking you these questions? Are there red flags that say, okay, this is somebody I don't want to talk to?
No, I think anyone who reaches out to me and says, hey, look, I want to do better at security for whatever the reason, even if it's a check the box, I want to do better at security, then I think that, they need help. And it's like,
well, no, I'm talking from the other side. That if I'm the business owner and I'm looking for a pen tester, is there something, if I hear a pen tester say something, I need to run the other way? So one thing that when you go to the larger firms, you'll find that their sales team is very disconnected from the actual people that are going to do the assessment. In this industry, there's a lot of white labeling that goes on, honestly. Like you're going to be working with one company who hires 2 or 3 other companies who then have a subcontractor who actually does the work. It's really common to do that. And so when that occurs, that's not necessarily a red flag, but it's always better when you have a company that involves the actual assessor, that involves the person who's going to be looking at the application, at least involved in the sales process. So try to gauge, figure out, are you talking to a sales guy? Does he actually know what he's talking about? Like, or do you feel like he's a sales guy? If you ever get that vibe, to me, that's a red flag. Like I want to know that I'm talking with someone who actually is an assessor who understands what pen testing is all about. I'm sure that there's, if you're talking with someone and they're not asking you questions, trying to understand your app or what your goals are, then you're talking to the wrong person. A good pen tester is going to take the time to understand your environment, how it functions, and what your goal of the assessment is to get out. Some people want to know, hey, am I susceptible to ransomware? While other people don't care about that. They just want to know, hey, can my data
be stolen? Is exfiltration possible, right? And if you have an assessor who doesn't ask those questions, then you probably don't have a guy who's going to actually deliver a quality report.
Cool.
Are there certain certifications that you should be looking for
from the company? Yeah, there's all kinds of industry certifications. The OSCP is a really common one, but that's more of like the pen testers being certified to do the work. In all honesty, certifications kind of go, I mean, as you know, certifications are good, but they're not the, tell all. So it's hard to say, but yeah, there's a lot of good certifications out there, and the more letters someone has after the name, the more you can assume they know what they're talking about. But it's really not, it really doesn't give you an accurate picture of everything.
And Courtney, I know you have a hard stop here at 3:40, so I don't know if you need to go. If you need to just shut us off and run, that's fine. But
I was in the process of sending you a message.
All right.
You're watching the clock.
Well, thank you, Courtney, for taking time. It's been an awesome conversation, for sure.
Likewise, it's been a pleasure, and you'll be hearing from me soon.
Okay.
Hey, thanks, guys. Catch you guys later.
Thanks again, Courtney. We appreciate it.
And then there were three.
Then there were three.
Three musketeers. So yeah, very interesting to see his questions on that.
Yeah.
And now I was wondering, with that, is there a lot of times that you're actually working with like the decision maker, the designer of the app, or is it a lot of times you're working with like one of their project managers or their dev team or what? Because like it seems like if you can get in line with the business owner like you did, like you and Courtney could have done because he's so involved, that makes it that much easier to like, no, this is worth it.
Yeah. So I have a unique perspective, right? Because I get to work full time in-house as an in-house pen tester, but I also do a ton of consulting and contract work for, the outside perspective. And so it's very different between the two. When you're a consultant, you talk with decision makers pretty much throughout the entire engagement. You're talking with, the CISO or the VP of security. In some cases, the owner. Just kind of depends on how they have that structured. But you're talking with maybe the head of IT and then the decision makers above them that don't really understand, what's going on. So that's who you're talking with for the scoping and the pricing and the scheduling and all of that. And then you do the assessment, and you only ever talk with them maybe 2 other times. You deliver the report, and then you have a debrief call. And, that debrief call is a chance for anybody from the other side that they want in, if they want their technical guys on, if they want their developers on, if they want the decision makers on. I always encourage all of those roles to be present. We do the debrief, and then I let them ask questions. We go through the findings one by one, and we just explain any questions they have and make sure that it all makes sense. And if there's any modifications to the report, is this really not applicable because of X, Y, and Z, and we need to take that out. So all of those conversations we had, and then after that, it's kind of done with. And then until the next time, right? You might do a round of remediation testing, but then that's it. But with the internal side of the house, it's very different because I deliver the report, and now I work directly with the developers every day until that issue is fixed, right? Or I'm constantly hitting them, pinging them, saying, hey, where we're at with this. And so it's a very different experience in that side. And it's a role that I think is needed. So if you're going to hire an external pen tester, you also need to appoint someone on your team to be the go-to contact for that pen testing consultancy, but to also see the project through to completion. Like the pen tester will be done when they deliver the report, but your work as a company isn't done. That's where your work starts. Because you have to take that report, and now you have to implement change. Because what good is a pen test if you don't do anything about it?
Yeah.
So
I'm curious, Harley. So have you ever gotten into any of your pen tests, but especially the software, since that's what we're talking about, and you've had some crafty developers in there, and they start sending you on
on like rabbit holes.
Yeah, rabbit holes to tie up your time, like you're going down this road, and then at the end it says "ha ha" or something like that. Have you had that?
I think if I were to see that, it would be in the internal side, because I'm a little bit more buddy with my company.
Right.
On the external side, it's not cost effective to waste a pen tester's time. Like they'll charge you for that. So if you want to waste their time, go for it. I definitely get challenged a lot. There's especially in the consulting side, when it's the first engagement I've ever done with someone, I love it when they say, okay, so here's the app, but you're not going to hack into it. Or here's this, but I work on it, so it's secure. Or it's my network, so it's okay. And it's almost just like, okay, challenge accepted, because you don't even know. And, and you roll up your sleeves. And I really love it when, like, 2 hours later you call them and say, hey, I'm in.
or you open Word on their computer and say, hey,
yeah,
this is me.
Exactly, right? That's where it gets really, really fun, for sure.
Yeah.
Holy cow. So yeah, that sounds like some really interesting, fun work, man. I'm just thinking about that rabbit hole someone's sliding. That would be something David would do, like
Absolutely.
go to the end.
On the blue team, I think it's your responsibility to do that. Not to do that to your pen testers, because what's the point other than pranks, right? But 100% you should implement deception in your environment as a blue team way to be alerted when an attacker's in your network. For example, this might get kind of technical, and I don't know if we want to do that, but to keep it kind of non-technical, if you were to just create a user account in your environment, whether it's an application, a SaaS application, or it's inside of Windows, you create a user account and you set it up to where it can't do anything, like it can't sign in anywhere, it can't access any data, but it's just a fake user, and you have alerts tightly tuned on it. So if anyone even tries to sign in, you'll be alerted and you'll see where that sign-in attempt came from. That's using deception, right? And it's kind of pranking people, but it's using it as an aid. It doesn't cost you anything to do that. And you can develop that, and immediately now you have a trap out there. Because as a hacker, as a pen tester, I'm going to get on a network, and if I see a login portal, I'm going to start brute forcing it. I'm just going to spray as much stuff as I can and try to get in. Eventually, I'll hit that user account, and boom, you caught me. And I'm done.
I'm wondering, would it make sense? Let's say I have a SaaS application. I create, in essence, another copy of it publicly out there that I know is going to get hit in some sort of scan. I take any real data out of it, so I'm not breached. It's properly sandboxed, so it can't get anywhere else, and then make sure that the logging is very, very good. I would imagine it's kind of like in the wild pen testing. You have people that are they're testing it, and if your logs are good, you're seeing exactly what they're doing. You say, "Oh, I need to go fix that on the real thing because they just got in."
So here's the thing with that. So I mean, what you're talking about doing is a honeypot. Using honeypots and deception is an aid for sure. But I would just argue, if you're going to spend that time and effort making a clone and tuning the login on it, why don't you just do that on the production, the real thing? If it's already on the internet to begin with, focus your effort there. You should still be able to see when someone gets in if you have things set up the right way. But no, in 100% honeypots, doing something like that is definitely a way, especially if you put like really low hanging fruit. Attackers love low hanging fruit. I love low hanging fruit. It's the first thing I try to do, because if I can spend 2 hours and get the same result as if I spent 20 hours, why wouldn't I?
That's what we talk about all the time with our clients, with the people that we are trying to sell to our prospects. A lot of what we do as a defensive cybersecurity company is just to remove all the low-hanging fruit, because once you're targeted, it's going to be hard to stop someone that has decided you are going to become their victim. But if you get rid of all that low-hanging fruit, they're just going to go look for something easier, right?
Yep, unless there's, for whatever reason, you're being specifically targeted. See, this is one thing a lot of people also don't really always connect, is they're like, well, I don't have anything. Like, why would they pick me? We all know that's not true. Okay, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue that right now. But even let's assume that's true. You don't have anything, right? No one wants to target you, but you have vendors and you have contacts, right? So what if you guys specifically, you guys are like trusted vendors that kind of have backdoors into a lot of other companies. So I might not be after you, right? As a bad guy, I might not be after you. I'm just using you as a gateway to the guy I'm really after. And you guys are one example of that, but all of your clients are the same thing, right? So
Yeah.
it's like in some cases, yes, you eliminate the low hanging fruit, and then you're going to be okay for the people that are just driving by looking for a target. But in other cases, that's not good enough when you get to the more skilled, more advanced people that are targeting you for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, it relates great to that a few episodes ago when just talking about we like to create all those layers upon layers upon layers. So, the bad guys are walking down a street with a line of cars up and down that street, and they're just looking for the open door.
Yep.
And there's a lock on the door, well, that stops most people. But depending on what you got inside of that car, if they can look in there and they say, oh, David loves the band TLC, so if there's Don't Go Chasing Waterfalls, the single in there on CD.
Oh, they're getting in your car then.
David is finding a way to get that TLC album, but maybe he has an alarm on the car now, so if the window is broken, that it sets an alarm off, and that stops him from. So like all of these layers, and I love hearing that because it really is a game. If you're specifically targeted, then that's a different thing. But most of it is so random. I tell, they're like, why did they send that email to me? I was like, it was you and like 10,000 other people.
Exactly.
All doing it at this instant.
Yep. And they're campaigns, right? Just like a marketing campaign is to hundreds of people if it's done right. It's the same idea. It's a numbers game. Eventually, you're going to catch one who's, got their pants down. So that's and then you've also got like the exchange vulnerability that was in the news 3 months ago, where all these public exchange servers were getting hacked. That one you can't really do much about because it was a 0 day. As soon as the patch is available, your IT guys jump on it, right? But it still might be too late in that case. But that's where the defense in depth and the layers come in, because it's like, hundreds of people were affected by that issue, and there's nothing they could have done to prevent it. But then they've had a pen test before, so now they know, like, okay, well, where would the hacker go next, or what are some other issues in our network that might still exist that we should be looking to see if maybe they pivoted through, right? And it's just without that visibility or knowledge or the layers in there, you're really just a sitting duck.
Yeah, and I guess that really drives home the point that you made earlier about if you're doing it once a year, and let's say you have that exchange vulnerability and you're not paying close attention and you leave that open, is that exchange server connected to your web server in some way? And so are they going to use or to your SQL server because it wants to send emails through your exchange server? So we start with the exchange server and then we move laterally. Now we've got access to your web server. We've got access to your database server. We've got everything.
Yep.
Yeah, another great thing about that pen testing is it does get you to think about all these what ifs. So you have that well, yes, but for the business side, for the person who's being pen tested is you're thinking about things now that you haven't thought of, so you might come up with a solution if it happens in the future, and that's what we're talking about. Just doing this process prepares you for anything that might come up because you already know that there's something there. It's made you aware of, oh, there's this little hole here. And so even subconsciously, your brain starts to try to figure out, well, what if that really happens?
Yeah.
And it creates that seed.
It changes your culture a bit because you start thinking about, well, I didn't even think about that hole. What about this other hole? I wonder if there's another hole over here. And that's when you start getting into that that culture of security where now your developers are thinking about it on a daily basis, and when they're when they have to decide between coding something or going to find a pre-built library or something out there, maybe they go ahead and take the extra time to code it because you can't verify the library that you decided to use or something along those lines.
Yeah, no, that's something that I've noticed. So while I've been working in-house, where pen testing is now a regular thing, more regular than it's ever been, the developers are changing because they'd rather just fix it when they see it in the code themselves, or they'd rather just think about it, take a second and be like, oh wait, no, we should really use this function instead because it's less likely to have server-side request forgery or whatever. Then they're proactively preventing the issue from ever happening just because they know, hey, we've got a pen test coming, in next quarter, and I just don't want it to show up in the report, right?
Yeah.
That's probably where a good healthy rivalry is really good, because your blue team, your developers, they're going to be better because they know somebody's going to come back and look at their baby.
Exactly. Yep. So even if you can afford to have someone come every quarter to take a look at things that have changed, you're going to see it's going to pay dividends in more ways than you can imagine. Even if that report comes back and says we didn't find anything, that doesn't mean it wasn't worth it.
Right.
I have yet to have that happen, by the way. So
Yeah.
We'll see if that happens. I hope it happens, because then that means that they're doing everything right.
That's right. Yeah.
It's tough though. That's a tall task.
It's tough. It is tough. Yeah, for sure. But
There's always bugs in your code. I mean, I've been developing for a long time, and there's always bugs in your code, always. Yeah. And you can think you're the best coder ever, and somebody will walk up, look over your shoulder, and say, "Oh, well, what about that?" It's so frustrating, and you know it's happening with security as well.
Yeah, I mean, we could have a whole conversation on bug bounty programs in that world.
Hey, that'd
right?
be fun when you add that to chill.
Yeah, it ties into the conversation of pen testing, but there's definitely a right time, right place, right maturity level before you get to that, in my opinion. But those are a great example. You've got major corporations that have open bug bounty programs, and if you're watching and you're not sure what that is, it's essentially an open invitation to the entire world saying you can hack me. Here's scope. There is scope. It's saying you can only hack these things, but you can hack these things any time of the day you want, as often as you want. And if you find an issue, tell us about it, and we'll pay you for that. And so it's crowdsourcing your pen testing, and it's really effective. But again, I feel like there's the right time and place. If you do it too soon, you're just going to get swamped with too many issues, and you're also, again, opening the door to letting the entire world go in, and you can't always trust the entire world. So
yeah, there's going to be a percentage of people, of hackers that are doing that say, this vulnerability that I found is worth more in the wild than it is that bounty. So
so there's the right time and place to do that and implement that. And like I said, we could have a whole conversation on it. But the really cool thing about the bug bounty situation is it allows eyes to always be on something, and it goes to more almost like a subscription-based model without having to pay for the subscription. You just pay when you use the service, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, great, man. So did you always want to be a hero when you were young?
I'm not a hero. I'm just a villain who hasn't figured it out yet.
He's not a hero. He's not a savior. Forget what you know. Who knows what song that's coming from?
I don't know.
No, nobody. Too old.
Is it a TLC song?
It is not. It is not.
It's not Creep? Okay.
No, it sticks, Mr. Roboto.
Oh, I should know that. I love it. Oh, man. That's good. That's good. What a way to end it. On Sticks, which reminds us all of Strix.
I mean, our less well-known cousin, Sticks.
Nice.
Yeah, well, thank you, everybody, for joining us today. It's been great. Man, Harley, always love having you on. It's so interesting to hear Um, and like you just you hearing you talk, you ask really, really good questions to the people you interact with, and I think that helps so much just to ask those questions right away and not be the guy who's like, "Oh, you want some pen testing? Okay, I got you covered."
Sure.
No, and you involve them and see what they're trying to accomplish. I think that's really cool to hear. So yeah, everybody, we're here on Tuesdays now at 3 p.m. That's our new Chill with Jim schedule. We're going to be having a special guest like Harley and Courtney today, once a month. And David, what do we have coming next week or
Well, I mean,
in 2 weeks?
yeah, in 2 weeks, I mean, it's a new month. So we're going to go ahead and
Next
do
month.
special guest again. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Uh,
we're doing back-to-back special guests.
Back-to-back special guests. Yeah, we're going to have Sarah Kent and hopefully Cody Louviere as well from King Crow Studios. They are a gaming company. They're knocking it out of the park. They're getting some very big contracts with some very important people. I'm not going to spoil too much there because I want them to be able to talk about all the success that they've had and the cybersecurity that they're going through in order to secure those contracts. So we'll be talking to King Crow Studios here in a couple weeks.
That's awesome.
It's going to be a good one. Harley, come on out, man. But just thank you for all of your support and coming and joining us on so many episodes.
Yeah, of course. I love talking. If you can't tell, I love talking about this stuff. So, any opportunity I can have to come and chat about this, I'm happy to. And if you guys ever want me to tell war stories, or crazy pen test stories or something, I'd be happy to do that too sometime.
That'd be fun.
Yes, we'll set it up. We'll make it happen.
Yep.
Cool. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you guys. Appreciate you.
Yes.
Take care.
Thanks, Harley, and we'll see you all next week at the same new-ish time, chill time, and the same chill channel. See ya in 2 weeks. We appreciate it. Thanks. See ya.